I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for your support.
Hey y'all, it's Kay from Literary Apothecary and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing my January wrap up with my February TBR. Now I know I'm a little bit behind on all of this. I still haven't done my December wrap up or my January TBR, but I figure since now we're into February, I'll just not do that because y'all know what I read in December and now you're going to know what I read in January. So let's just pretend that I did it and move on. So January was a pretty good reading month for me. I read 12 books, 1 essay, and 1 short story. It was a 4-star month for me. I had the most 4-star ratings, eked out 5 stars by 1 book. And so now I'm just going to go quickly over what I've read in January. So starting with Cytonic by Brandon Sanderson, this one I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I appreciated the way that Sanderson approached the ideas of identity, courage, individuality, and what makes us us. Especially for a YA audience, those topics are big topics for anyone, but especially trying to frame them in a way that a YA audience might be able to not only understand, but also relate to was done really well. I finished The Slap by Karen Travis, which was book 5 in the Gears of War series. I actually finished the entire Gears of War series in January, but we'll get to the others later. This one I gave 3 out of 5 stars. I thought it had good writing, but it could have been better. There wasn't a lot of character development, actually hardly any at all. And it felt weird to have this placement here as book 5 because this took place before all of the other books did. This was Marcus in prison and it just felt weird, a weird placement, which is something that you're going to hear a lot about the other books also. I read The Tale of the Border Knight by A.R. Witham. This one is one of my 5-star books. This was the companion novella to The Legend of Blackjack. This had everything a legendary tale should have. Adventure, humor, heroic knights, and even that moment where the reader doubts if the hero will win. I read The Briar Crown by Helen Wright Patterson, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I loved the story, but I wanted a little bit more emotion from our characters, but it kept me turning page after page after page. Voice of War by Zach Argyle, another 5-star book. This was such a great debut. Very well written, great characters, a mesmerizing magic system, an awesome plot, and I can't wait to see where it goes in this series. The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, book 1 in the Wheel of Time series. This one I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was a great story, had a good adventure, good plot, good characters. Although there were a lot of characters in general and it was hard to keep track of who was main to the story and who was just kind of side character status. Excellent world building, and it felt a little bit long-winded and tedious to me at times. But I really enjoyed that, and today I started the 2nd book in that series for a read-along, The Great Hunt, so I can't wait to continue this series. Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey, I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was properly spooky and creepy. A haunted house story, serial killer story, monster maybe story. It was 5 stars for me until the end, and that's just because the ending for me and for a lot of other people, like we discussed in our live show, just didn't fit the rest of the book. And then you heard me talk about finishing off the Gears of War series. The next 3 books are the last 3 books in that series: Ascendance, Bloodline, and Ephra Rising. Ascendance and Bloodlines I gave 3 out of 5 stars. Ascendance is a whole new cast of characters. This is years in the future from where we started with books 1 through 5. This is kind of the younger generation now. I thought it was okay, but it felt like it was a whole different series to me. Bloodlines follows that same kind of vein where we are with this new generation, but Bloodlines, the majority of that book was actually about when our main character, Kate Diaz's dad, back during the UIR wars, which is way before any of these other books started. So while I enjoyed the writing in that book, it did not feel like it was needed in this series. And then the last book, Ephra Rising, actually takes place in between books 1 through 5 and 6 and 7. And I will have a review for Ephra Rising and the entire Gears of War book series coming, I think tomorrow, February 7th is when I'm planning to have that out. So look for more on those. So then the short story that I mentioned was part of Leslie at the Nerdy Narratives Dresden Files read along, and that is called A Fistful of Warlocks. I absolutely loved this short story. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was so much fun, and I loved the main character in that. This was my first introduction to Dresden Files. I have not read that series before, and Leslie is doing a read-along of the series. It's a reread for her, one of her favorites. And she's including the short stories and the graphic novels along with the main novels. So I thought, let me just dip my toe in and start with a short story, and I absolutely loved it, and I can't wait to read more. So that was my reading for January. Oh, the essay, of course, was our Joan Didion essay of the month. So January's Joan Didion essay was Rock of Ages, and this was actually an essay about Alcatraz. And that Alcatraz for me is one of those fascinations that I can't really explain, but I absolutely love reading about. And Joan Didion has a way of absolutely capturing the atmosphere and writing about a place so you know exactly what to imagine, exactly what she's talking about, even if you've never been there before, and she did not disappoint with that essay. So those are the books and stuff that I've read in January. Now let's talk about my February TBR. First, we'll talk quickly about the carryovers that are coming over from January. We have Demons by Dostoevsky. This will be wrapping up our Demons read-along in February with a live show probably sometime in the beginning of March. I can't wait for that. What else is a carryover is Vaven Song by Jonathan Navis Mayers. This was a self-pub book that just is being released this month in February. I read the arc of that carried over from January into February. A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin, of course. This is the first book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series. This is a first read for me. I am enjoying what I've been reading so far. Imperium by Robert Harris, which is a historical fiction book about Cicero and his time in the court of the Romans, which is part of a read-along on Ellen at Library of Alexandria's channel. The Fifth Elephant by Terry Pratchett. This is a self-assigned read to me. I want to get back into Discworld this year, so I'm trying to do at least one Discworld book a month, and this was the last one that I left off in from last year, or maybe even the year before that, in the City Watch series. So those are my carryovers. Now let's talk about the rest of my February TBR. First, let's talk about our Joan Didion essay of the month, of course, The Seacoast of Despair. This I will have thoughts about in my next wrap-up. We have the short story, A Restoration of Faith, still I have to read for the Dresden read-along. And then let's talk about the books. So we've got The Great Hunt, which is book 2 in the Wheel of Time series. A Clash of Kings, which is book 2 in the Song of Ice and Fire series. That I'm doing as a very slow, very much behind read-along with Ben, Overly Average Ben, and Grace on their Discord. Night Watch, which is the next City Watch book in the Discworld series. Lustrum, which is the next book in the Cicero trilogy which is the read along with Alan. Yellow Sky Revolt, this is one of my self-pub books for February, and we will have Baptiste Pinson Wu on this channel February 19th for self-pub Sundays. I'm so excited for that. I've already started reading this. This is a historical fiction, I believe, Japanese, Chinese inspired, Asian inspired, and I'm really enjoying this storytelling so far. Gurzu by I Anonymous, which is also part of my Self-Pub Sundays series. I Anonymous will be on the channel on February 12th. This is a historical fiction fantasy retelling of the Arthurian legends. I just started this, don't have a lot of thoughts yet, but more thoughts to come. The Thursday Murder Club is our wine and crime book of the month for February. I've got a library hold. It's inching its way closer towards me. I'm hoping to be able to get and finish this by the end of the month. By the Hand of Dragons, the Rook book number 1. This is our third and final Self-Pub Sunday book for February. This is written by Alexander Christian, and he will be on the channel on the 26th at the very end of the month. And then we have Stormfront still, Dresden book number 1. Welcome to the Jungle, which is the graphic novel for Dresden number 1. The Kingdom of Liars by Nick Martell, which is my patron pick of the month. Ben picked the Kingdom of Liars as a buddy read for us, so we're hoping to get to that sometime in the middle of the month. And then the last book on my TBR, I'm sure I probably forgot some, but the last book I have written down is Let Your Lips Twitch, which is a short story collection, humorous short stories, and this is part of a book tour held by Eric at Break Even Books, and I am kind of reading one short story a day in this, and I am enjoying this so much. These are just the light short stories that I needed along with all of my heavy reads so far. So that's my February TBR. My January wrap up, it's a little bit hectic because we're now in the swing of things in February. But let me know in the comments below if you're planning on reading any of these books. If any of these are your favorites, let me know what I should prioritize. I've got an idea because of live shows and whatnot, but let me know if I need to move any of these books further up. As always, my Patreon and my Discord information will be in the description below. Keep reading, and I love y'all to the moon and back. Bye.